Ever since the announcement of my conversion to deism, I have been asked on numerous occasions to provide an account of the factors that led me to change my mind. In a few subsequent articles and in the new introduction to the 2005 edition of My God and Philosophy, I drew attention to recent works relevant to the ongoing discussion on God, but I did not elaborate further on my own views. I have now been persuaded to present here what might be called my last will and testament. In brief, as the title says, I now believe there is a God. The subtitle, How the World's Most Notorious Atheist Changed His Mind, was not my own invention, but it is one I am happy to employ, for the invention and employment of apt yet arresting titles is for flu something of a family tradition. My theologian father once edited a collection of essays by himself and some of his former students, and gave to this polemic paperback the paradoxical and yet wholly appropriate and properly informative title, The Catholicity of Protestantism. In the matter of form of presentation, if not of substantive doctrine, following his example, I have in my time published papers with such titles as Do-Gooders Doing No Good? And Is Pascal's Wager the Only Safe Bet? At the outset, I should make one thing clear. When reports of my change of mind were spread by the media and the ubiquitous Internet, some commentators were quick to claim that my advanced age had something to do with my conversion. It has been said that fear concentrates the mind powerfully, and these critics had concluded that expectations of an impending entrance into the afterlife had triggered a deathbed conversion. Clearly, these people were familiar with neither my writings on the non-existence of an afterlife nor with my current views on the topic. For over FTI years, I have not simply denied the existence of God, but also the existence of an afterlife. My Gifford lectures, published as The Logic of Mortality, represent the culmination of this process of thought. This is one area in which I have not changed my mind. Absent special revelation, a possibility that is well represented in this book by N.T. Wright's contribution, I do not think of myself surviving death. For the record, then, I want to lay to rest all those rumors that have me placing Pascalian bets. I should point out, moreover, that this is not the first time I changed my mind on a fundamental issue. Among other things, readers who are familiar with my vigorous defense of free markets may be surprised to learn that I was once a Marxist. For details, see the second chapter of this book. In addition, over 2 decades ago, I retracted my earlier view that all human choices are determined entirely by physical causes. Since this is a book about why I changed my mind about the existence of God, an obvious question would be what I believed before the change, and why. The FIRS 3 chapters seek to answer this question, and the last 7 chapters describe my discovery of the divine. In the preparation of the last 7 chapters, I was greatly helped by discussions with Professor Richard Swinburne and Professor Brian Leftow, the former and current occupants of the Norloth Chair at Oxford. There are 2 appendices to the book. The first is an analysis of the so-called New Atheism of Richard Dawkins and others by Roy Abraham Varghese. The second is an open-ended dialogue on a topic of great interest to most religious believers: the issue of whether there is any kind of divine revelation in human history, with specific attention to the claims made about Jesus of Nazareth. In the interest of furthering the dialogue, the New Testament scholar N.T. Wright, who is the present Bishop of Durham, kindly provided his assessment of the body of historical fact that underlies Christian theists' faith in Christ. In fact, I have to say here that Bishop Wright presents by far the best case for accepting Christian belief that I have ever seen. Perhaps something should be said about my notoriety as an atheist, which is referenced in the subtitle. The first of my anti-theological works was my 1950 paper, Theology and Falsification. That paper was later reprinted in New Essays in Philosophical Theology, 1955, an anthology I co-edited with Alasdair MacIntyre. New Essays was an attempt to gauge the impact on theological topics of what was then called the Revolution in Philosophy. The next major work was God and Philosophy, first published in 1966 and reissued in 1975, 1984, and 2005. In his introduction to the 2005 edition, Paul Kurtz, one of the leading atheists of our age and author of the Humanist Manifesto II, wrote that Prometheus Books is delighted to present what by now has become a classic in the philosophy of religion. God and Philosophy was followed in 1976 by The Presumption of Atheism, which was published as God, Freedom and Immortality in the United States in 1984. Other relevant works were Hume's Philosophy of Belief and Logic and Language, Phi RST and Second Series, An Introduction to Western Philosophy, Ideas and Arguments from Plato to Sartre, Darwinian Evolution, and The Logic of Mortality. It is paradoxical indeed that my first published argument for atheism was originally presented at a forum presided over by the greatest Christian apologist of the last century, the Socratic Club chaired by C.S. Lewis. Yet another paradox is the fact that my father was one of the leading Methodist writers and preachers in England. Moreover, at the start of my career, I had no particular interest in becoming a professional philosopher. Since, notoriously all good things, if not all things without exception, must come to an end, I will end my introductory words here. I leave it to readers to decide what to make of my reasons for changing my mind on the question of God.